This is a film study look at Brent Urban, the veteran defensive end, defensive tackle hybrid, if you will, that re-signed with the Baltimore Ravens. Once again, 6'7", large wingspan, extremely versatile player. For those outside the Ravens fan base, this is of course probably categorized as a nothing signing, an end of the roster addition to bolster D-line depth. Man, I just have a drastically different opinion after watching film of Brent Urban for most of the last day and just reflecting on some of the plays he's made, not just the block kick that was returned for a touchdown in 2015 against the Browns. He's a hidden gem for a lot of reasons. Besides the positional versatility, the experience, you got the size, the length, and the range factor. And it's twofold when I say the range. It's not just the wingspan, his ability to get his arms up and get in and deflect the pass, get in passing lanes, if you will, get his hands out on people, range. But it's also coverage area, movement. He can make plays across a wide swath of the field. I do wonder if some of that is related to his consistency in lining up deeper off the line of scrimmage than all of the other defensive linemen, edge defenders on the Ravens roster consistently. You'll see it in the film that we'll show here in a minute. Something I can't prove that I suspect and have suspected since early 2023. Good things happen when Brent Urban's on the field. Like I said, I can't prove it. I don't know what that's called. He's definitely not a pass rush guy, but I don't think the Ravens need any support there. I think we've got that covered, right? Van Noy, Owe, Matabike have all had 10-plus sacks in one or both of the past 2 years. Travis Jones brings the ability to collapse the pocket as well. Maybe his sack numbers aren't as significant as the other three guys that I mentioned. We drafted Mike Green, who looked spectacular in the stadium practice Sunday afternoon. This D-line is I think, a really deep, tough group right now that brings a lot of versatility and flexibility to the roster. And Brent Urban really just pushes that dynamic over the top. Let's get to a little bit of the film. How do you categorize some of the things that Brent Urban does? Well, first I'm going to start off with what I don't think would be considered his relative strength. Most of his sacks, his impact against the quarterback in pass rush situations, is when someone else has got the initial pressure, whether it's a blitz or an edge defender disrupting the pass protection, the pocket, forcing the quarterback to kind of move off of his spot. And Brent Urban kind of gets these cleanup sacks. This is a great example. Against the 49ers 2023, Jadeveon Clowney off of our left side here, the right side of the defense, is going to get a clean win, initial contact on the quarterback. Urban is the guy that finishes things off. This is kind of what you get, however, with Urban is a guy who is stable in his pass rush lane. And I don't just mean make contact with one guy and flatten out. I mean, he generally seems to be in the right spot when teamed up with an outside pass rush. And I don't claim that this is always organized or pre-planned, because sometimes pass rushers have, a two-way go, meaning Jade. I guess what I really mean by this is that Brent Urban oftentimes seems to be able to clean up sacks from one side after there's been a top side rush, basically illuminated by the yellow and then the purple path that I've drawn there for Clowney. It's not really necessarily accurate to the direction that he goes. Urban often seems to be the guy that finishes off a sack after an outside rush from the opposite side of the field. How often are edge rushers' paths or moves predetermined? I'm not sure, but Urban seems to fit with a speed rush from the opposite side of the field a lot. Moving on a little bit about where he's typically been deployed and how I think he offers his versatility, the versatility that he offers, can bring different levels to the defense. Normally, I see him lined up into the boundary and oftentimes next to the Sam linebacker. In this case, it's Malik Harrison with the arrow pointing at him. Happens to be another somewhat cleanup sack faced off against the left tackle. One more time. It's Clowney with the initial pressure, contact with the quarterback, and then Urban kind of finishes off Brock Purdy. As I kind of mentioned in the lead-in, I do wonder if his ability or his consistently lining up deeper than the other defensive linemen on the field kind of helps him react to certain blocking schemes, particularly zone run schemes. I think it gives him a wider field of vision at times because he's backed further off and the offensive linemen are not as much of a disruption to his visual path. In this case, it happens to be a sack against the Cleveland Browns, where he kind of powers through one and then a second blocker for a sack of Deshaun Watson. Urban also seems like an extremely physical player. In fact, at times he can be a presence upon pursuit. Normally, I'm talking about horizontal pursuit. In this case, it happens to be early season win, I think week 4, 2023, against the same Cleveland Browns. This time they don't have Watson as the quarterback, but it's a huge finish by Urban on DTR. Surprised in this day and age, it's not called a penalty, but that's the type of finish, that's the type of collision that you often get for Brent Urban when he's in pursuit on a screen, when he's running things down from behind, or in this case, attacking the quarterback pretty much in the middle of the pocket. Like I said in the lead in here, he's not an exceptional pass rusher. We all know that compared to the top 120 or 150 or guys or even more in the NFL. He does have film of quarterback sacks and hits. I just showed some of it to you, but that's not what he signed for. The extreme versatility, and I think there's levels to that. Here's what I mean. Not only can he play three technique, which is what you're going to see him play on this next clip that I show you, 4-eye, which is inside shade of the tackle, 5 technique, outside shade of the tackle, wide 5, which is the pass rush situation you saw against the 49ers. But also he can be adjusted during the play while on the field. And this is a big deal. He's often tagged with the Sam linebacker, Malik Harrison, in the plays that I showed you, the one play I showed you against the 49ers. And I think that's important. This is a big deal. When he ends up on the same side as a very versatile player, the Ravens defense, generally into the boundary, can look like something that it's not. They can basically make it look like a 4-3 when it's really a 3-4 or a 5-2. He can move the Sam can move around more, excuse me, because of Urban's versatility when they're next to each other. That's huge. I think his best positioning is a 5 technique defensive end into the boundary, so outside shade of the tackle. He's got great range at 6'7". We use him everywhere, but to me, that's the spot that would suit him best. Also plays at a really high level in terms of his awareness and getting in passing lanes when his pass rush move isn't going to work. I do suspect that there's times where he's kind of slow playing things intentionally and possibly getting calls from an inside linebacker position, a Roquan Smith or a Patrick Queen, about what might be coming up based on the offensive lineman's positioning and perhaps how much weight they've got positioned out on their front hand. I have long speculated or wondered about why he's lined up off the ball so often, essentially 1 yard deeper than perhaps some of his teammates, or 1 yard off the ball, I should say. Couple of things that I'll offer as possible explanations. Number one, to screw up with the timing of zone blocking schemes when he's an interior D tackle. And what I mean by that is those offensive guards, tackles, or a guard center combo, or pairing, they're used to a particular timing in terms of deciphering how to combo up. Who will take over the defensive tackle in this comparison or analogy, Urban, and who will move up to the linebacker level. Again, I'm talking about zone blocking schemes. A little bit of conjecture. It's not exactly known to me why. Another thing, a reason why we used to do it occasionally is to slant. We would line up slightly deeper in order to slant and really try to mess with zone blocking schemes. Essentially, what we were trying to do is we were trying to slant into the zone and make the running back have to bounce it. Final point or possible explanation for it is kind of alluded to it earlier, is that maybe he's trying to get a wider field of view since he's slightly further back from an offensive lineman. I don't know, to be real. Those are some of my suspicions. You're welcome to let me know what yours are in the comment section. Here's an example of it, albeit not lined up as a defensive tackle, lined up as a defensive end. Against the Steelers, 2023, a zone read. He's got the back to his side. Now, it is also easy to say, hey, coach, Kenny Pickett is the quarterback, so it's quite obvious that he's not going to keep it. He's going to give it to the running back, Najee Harris. Ends up being a short gain for Harris, 1 yard gain, in fact, with Brent Urban making the initial contact, stepping right down the field. Another thing, stepping right down the line of scrimmage. Another thing to just mention here is once again, he's lined up on the same side as Malik Harrison, who was the Sam in the Ravens defense, and they are lined up into the boundary, the short side of the field as it looks right now. End zone angle of the exact same play. And there he is stacked with Harrison. Again, that versatility. You put him next to another versatile player. Who is that on the Ravens defense? Well, could be Kyle Van Noy, but Kyle Van Noy is not an inside linebacker. He's an outside linebacker. Trenton Simpson comes to mind as well. It's pretty clear to me that Pickett's not actually reading this. He's picking up the defensive end Urban after he's already put the ball in the running back's gut. So he's not comfortable in a read option set, at least, as this film shows from 2023. So he had to confirm the running back's path in order to hand it off, therefore, not a read. The range that I kind of talked about earlier, here's an example of it. I think we'll give you two views. So Urban is the boundary side defensive tackle, so a different alignment than what I've discussed. He's a pure defensive tackle on the field with Travis Jones. Jamar Chase is in at running back, and Roquan Smith is clearly motioning or pointing that out. It's a boundary side screen. Urban kind of gets upfield. He is the first guy to make contact. Queen kind of takes an unusual path because I think Queen is assigned to the tight end man. But in any case, Urban's the first guy to make contact with Boyd after about a 5 or a 6 yard gain. Same play from the end zone angle. You can see Roquan kind of gesticulating with the safety to communicate about what's happening possibly with Jamar Chase. Urban ends up being let go, immediately puts the stop sign on, redirects to go get involved in the play. I'll show some run plays of Urban where he's really got his own style. He's unique. No matter what technique he's playing, whether he's a 3, a 5, a 9, or a 4-eye. I think it must also be mentioned the roster flexibility. If I understand it correctly, and you're more than welcome in the comment section to explain it better than perhaps I do here, he generally signs non guaranteed contracts for whatever reason. I do think his career earnings, I looked him up immediately after he was signed. I think his career earnings are in either 11 or 12 million dollars. So who knows why he's doing this, but if I understand the roster situation correctly, because of his veteran status, he can be cut and signed with no financial penalty since his contract's not guaranteed. The Ravens have taken advantage of this in the past. I expect them to do so now and in the future. Feel free to let me know how much of that is accurate or what I left out or perhaps missed. Like I said earlier on in the video, I do suspect that sometimes he's getting information from the inside linebacker level. It's been communicated to him. I don't think he's in control of the calls. You can see he's slightly different than, or slightly set back than the other defensive tackle. In this case, it's Travis Jones. Now, he's playing 3 technique here. When you get the end zone angle, he's actually playing a 4-eye from a 3. So there's some slight intricacies there, if you will. This is a 2nd and 1, or it's a 2nd and inches. And the running back, Joe Mixon, when he was still with the Bengals, actually gets 3 yards. So it's a successful play. Urban is a 3 technique here. So he's outside shade of the guard. There are certain rules that they expect to be able to apply as offensive linemen with a 3 technique to one side and a 1 technique or possible 2-eye to the other. The only difference is here, Urban is actually stepping out. So he's playing a 4-eye from a 3. He's stepping out to the tackle. And the guard, you can see, quickly moves immediately up to Patrick Queen. Mixon is able to get a first down. I will show you a second play that kind of follows this same pattern, which is the reason for me bringing up this slight variation of the 3 technique, the way to play a 3 technique. Same game against the Bengals, home game in late 2023. In fact, you recall it's the game that Joe Burrow left with a hand injury. It's a 1st and 10. Another run into the boundary, very similar to what we just saw, except it's a gap scheme. Now, the guard reacts in a very different manner. Urban is doing the same thing that we just described or just displayed, except he's really jacking up the offensive tackle and stuffs Mixon for a very short gain. You'll get the end zone angle so you can confirm what I'm saying in terms of his alignment. He's kind of stacked on Queen there, but he's a 3 technique, not a 4-eye. He's playing a 4-eye, however, because he's stepping to the tackle. Watch how it Watch what it does to this guard, the way that Urban plays this. Now, on the previous snap, Urban stepped out to the tackle, and Jones stepped out to the other guard because he's lined up in the A gap. So they're stepping out to do two different players, tackle versus guard. Consider what happens with this guard, how unusual this looks. Trying to combo Urban, who's really stepping out to get head up with the tackle, but because the tackle is stepping with the guard, they're trying to combo him. Urban ends up in the C gap, whereas he lined up in the B gap. And because the guard pulls, there's really no one to go get Roquan Smith because this guard originally stepped to Queen and then veers back to Roquan Smith. My point in mentioning all of this is Brent Urban kind of plays a totally different game. There's almost an aspect to where when he's on the field, he does things in a different manner than pretty much every other player on our defense. Do I think that he is just doing these things on his own? No, I don't. I think this is planned. I think it's structured. And I think the Ravens' defensive philosophy has figured some things out that really I can't even understand and try to explain to you. It's not that no one else ever steps out or steps away from the football. There are certain techniques, a seven technique, depending on how you describe someone who's inside shade the tight end, where you actually do step out to your pressure key while keeping your eyes on your visual key. Brent Urban is someone who can accomplish that. He can basically execute anything that you need done from a two technique, head up on the guard, on out. Probably more comfortable in an odd technique. His length, his arm length, his recognition, his awareness, experience, all of those things, man, it just rolled into one. This is an underrated football player. Do I think we need him to play 50 snaps a game? No. In fact, he can go 2 or 3 or 4 weeks in a row of only playing 10 or 12 snaps, essentially being a depth piece, if you will, for a month. And then, if you need him to play 30, 35 snaps, he'll show up and ball out. He's done that in the past. I don't see any reason why he can't do that in 2025. The front office clearly trusts him. You can sometimes watch players' reactions to one another, and when Brent Urban is involved in making plays, it almost seems to be kind of infectious. Team or players celebrate with him in a way that they're happy to see him perform. I think he's an unselfish guy. The front office keeps bringing him back, maximizing a situation with minimum salary commitment. I think the versatility of this defense is different with Brent Urban out on the field. When we lost Malik Harrison, it's a guy who could play outside linebacker, nine technique slash edge, and be a badass against the run. Not a pass rusher, right? Malik was never that, and he won't ever be, really. But he's exceptional against the run to him. He could also drop and play inside linebacker. We saw the impact he had in the Chargers game last year when Roquan Smith was out. Urban provides versatility, but when combined or used as a tandem with someone like a Malik Harrison, it really just exponentially brings to the forefront what the Ravens defense can try to do. Those players to me are Van Noy and Simpson. Van Noy is an outside linebacker at this point, has some experience playing inside linebacker, won't be asked to do that for us unless there's an injury situation that makes it critical. Simpson has a background in being versatile, so it could be him, and he's certainly going to play into the boundary, which is where I think Urban is probably best suited. I think Humphrey and Hamilton provide insane levels of versatility, but they're generally third level defenders, a cornerback and a safety. Marlon will spend a lot of time as the nickel, which will be lined up to the field. I don't think Marlon will be combined with Urban. I think Urban and Simpson or Urban and Van Noy will be on the same side often. And I think Urban just improves the overall possibilities for this defense that should be able to hit the ground in a much better place than they did early in 2024. This is just another signing, if you ask me, to add to an already deep roster that Zach Orr has on the defensive side, just focusing there, to be able to step into 2025 as a top 10 defense, which is how we finished in the last 5 or 6 games of the regular season last year. You're welcome to let me know if you think I've overstated Brent Urban's capability and his impact. I think his impact is a staccato or inconsistent. And I don't think it's because of his talent. I think it's just because of what the Ravens want from some of our other players. We would rather use some of our other younger defensive tackles more, but the bottom line is There does come a time through injury or situation or what the Ravens are trying to get accomplished where Brent Urban is the right choice to put on the field for 25, 30 snaps a game. We've seen that dynamic in 2024, in 2023, and even before that. Let me know what you think of the film study that I put together in the comment section. If you do think that other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study look at Brent Urban, who returned to Baltimore once again over the weekend or late last week, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.